Welcome to another episode of the Voices of Boyle podcast. Today I chatted with Tony Conboy, a man who most of you will already know pretty well. Born and raised in Castlecoote, just outside of Roscommon town, Tony moved to Boyle for a teaching position in St Mary's College in 1972. Since then, he's contributed immensely to the town of Boyle in many ways, some of which we'll chat about in this episode. Some of his stories, particularly Maureen O'Sullivan's visit to Boyle in the summer of 1988, will bring back a few memories, I'm sure. I hope you enjoy the episode, so let's get started. So welcome to the show, Tony. Thanks very much for taking the time to record it with me.
Thank you.
You kindly sent me a few days ago a few notes outlining the chronological time frame of your life. And looking at those notes yesterday, it appears that you haven't had 5 minutes rest since the late 60s. So before we get into that, get into all that, Tony, why don't you tell us a bit about where you were born and where you grew up?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, as to say in television now. Yeah, but I was born in 1946. A lot of people think I'm younger than that, but anyway, that's their assessment. 46, and I was born actually in a big house, a home birth in Castlecoote. The house is.
You were born in the house.
In the house,
okay.
Actually. Yeah, midwife came and this kind of thing. I was told that, I don't remember that. But then I was a member of a family of 7 and 3, with 3 actually stepbrothers as well. That made us 10. But the 3 stepbrothers were brothers, really. But just for my father's first wife died, and he married again, and I'm of that second family. And I had 3 sisters, 3 brothers, and it was a kind of the big house kind of influenced a bit of our lives. Of course, everyone thought we were very kind of well off or something. But we were just, my father was a pretty well known man. He had been a very good footballer and hurler with the Roscommon, and he was also an old IRA man. And that was the end of it. He didn't empathise with that very much afterwards. So he was well known. So I used to say, or wrote one time, that there was a dividend in being the father of, or the son of, of my father.
Yes.
Sorry, the Conboy was well known. So I used son of Conboy.
Yes.
Yeah. You can hear that. So then I went to my living then at that time through the 50s, and the 50s are a very great period in terms of no electricity, no running water, no hygiene, no whatever, ricks, different things like that. But in a sense, a lot of people will say, well, we had a good time.
Yeah. You knew no better, though, as well.
Pardon?
You knew no better because
that was the tenure of the time.
Yeah.
And then I went to national... Yeah, our lives then was helping at the farm. The famous campaigns we had in the beginning. In the spring, we had the tillage and potatoes and carrots and whatever, and barley or oats or whatever. Then that switched, and then there was the bog campaign, the turf campaign, we call it, still going on. And then you had the hay and that. So that was a full life. And the kind of recreational activity, of course, was football. We were a football house because of the tradition of football. Mm-hmm. And we had Furty had a reasonable club at that time, a junior club. When I was younger, it faded a little bit. And also hurling, we were associated with that league, which is only 3 or 4 miles from me. And that's the heartbeat of hurling in Roscommon, really. And so then going to school, national school, and the two-teacher national school, we thought there was a big crowd of us in it, but there wasn't really. Then we played on the road, and they were building a new church in Castlecoote at the time, and we used to play up and down the road, and we were very, very conscious of this new building emerging there. And a Roscommon footballer actually worked on that as a roofer, a man called John Lynch. And we were in awe of him, just to kind of see him for 10 yards away. That was something special. But went to that school. Miss Noon was the earlier teacher now, and she was pretty. She could be severe at times, but that's water under the bridge. I'm sure caught you. And then you had another man from Kerry, Master Moriarty, and I got on very well with him. And if you were a reasonable student, if you were a good student,
you got on okay.
You didn't come under fire.
And you said in the notes, Tony, that Master Fallon did a stint up there.
Yeah, Jack Fallon actually. Jack, came there. Jack comes from near Ballyforan.
Right.
I think he's across the river in Galway side of things. And he came there and spent a few years there. And then he went into Roscommon CBS National School. And he went to other places. He actually went abroad into Africa, as far as I remember.
Okay. And did you go to Roscommon CBS?
Oh, yeah. Then I went to Roscommon CBS, as was the practice. No, not everybody went to even secondary schools. Some people dropped out, or they went to the vocational school in Roscommon as well. But I went to, my brothers had gone to the CBS, and I went there. And that was... Now, the Christian Brothers have received a lot of criticism in recent decades, but in my dealings with them, they were okay, no problem with me. There was only one who had referred to as OTT, but there were a couple of civilian teachers.
Tony, there's always one, though, isn't there? There's always one.
Yeah. But anyway, that's I'm sure caught you again. But my favourite subjects were English, history and geography. And they were the staple food of mine, bacon and cabbage of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
To this day. And across the road then we had the library, and I was a reader then at that time. I wish I was read as much lately, but at that time, and I could have done Mastermind on World War II at the age of 15.
Specialised in it.
Specialised in that, because my father used to have interest in it and so on. So, and then the thing that coloured our we used to cycle in then about 5 miles. 5 miles cycle, or get a car, or thumb a lift, or all kinds of... but I always felt that I was going to, I was encouraged by my parents and my sister, who... Actually, my sister was in the convent in Roscommon in the early 50s, bright lady, and she got rheumatic fever, and it flavoured her life with illness through that. And so, but they encouraged, would say, education, and I expected to go a long way, or go somewhere anyway. But so another thing that coloured our life in the CBS was football. We were kind of crazy football. Yeah. We were only about 5 miles out from Roscommon town, of course, and the great Mecca, our Aztec Stadium or Wembley, was St. Coman's Park, which is now, which lately actually I see the County Council have given to the Pakistan community as a cricket ground.
Okay.
That's just happened in the last couple of months, and I might mention cricket later on.
A fan of it, I heard as well, yes.
Which is an oddball thing. But a couple of funny stories about that. But we're football anyway, and we had some great footballers. We had Tommy Heenan, and there was a Martin Joe Keane, who I wrote a bit about in the Roscommon People this week. It's out today in the Roscommon People. And he was in our class. And we did fairly well. I think we should have done better. Carlo, that phrase kind of could be on my headstone. Yeah. And many young fella got that going home on a report. Could have done better.
Yes.
Has ability.
Famous.
Yeah, has ability, but.
And Tony, so you did your Leaving Cert around 1964.
1964, yeah.
And then, as I said from your notes, it seems to have kind of gone a hockey stick kind of thing. After that, it's like you were involved in projects. You were travelling over and back to London.
Yeah. My brother was in UCG at the time. But Brendan he's in Perth now in Western Australia. But Brendan was in the CBS at that time, or in university. He had gone to the CBS and was now in UCG. And he was having a good time in UCG. So the notion, there was a kind of a fallacy, really, that I was waiting for him to kind of get out of there.
Right.
And I went to London, and I went over and back to London, and I worked in London in I would say a dozen different locations, because it was so easy to move from one
Work
location.
was plentiful back then.
Yeah. And the notable kind of construction work that I was involved in was on the Victoria Line tube.
Right.
They did the Queen Elizabeth line there lately with all the big machines, but this was dug out by the Donegal and Mayo people, and I was came in there I was called a pony boy.
Right.
In this, a pony boy operates in coal mines and so on, and they have these trolleys or bogies or whatever, and they fill it with the muck or the coal in coal mine, and the pony boys just push that out and then it's lifted up in a kind of a tunnel that goes up to the surface. But I was a pony boy in the Victoria Line in 1967. That would be. Brendan had been there, because Brendan went to London as well, and he had been in the tunnel. And I got in because of him. I was only a nipper, really.
And were you there for around the time of the World Cup in '66?
Yeah, in 1966. Another area that I was good actually, a barman, and
during the
World Cup.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and so it was great. And as well as that, the World Cup, it was a different. London that time was amazing, really. The fashion and all that. We didn't get it. We got cocooned in an Irish kind of style or Irish community. We were still close to that in Hammersmith.
Right.
That's where the pub was, and it was all from that famous Mary Quant Street or something near all that kind of thing. And of course, I didn't mention the Beatles. I grew up with the Beatles, really, from 1962 or 3 when they hit all those marvellous songs.
Yes.
And also I became, which was a bit of an avant-garde, I suppose, I became a Bob Dylan fan.
All right.
And Blown in the Wind.
And for like the atmosphere of the World Cup, though, that would fascinate me, especially the only time they won it.
Yeah.
It must have been a crazy atmosphere, being a barman as well.
Yeah. That was one of the elements of that was, as you said, being a barman, and you had the time, and you kind of debated it, and there was excitement outside. And then when the games were on, there were the population of the Hammersmith just slunk away into the bars and houses and so on. And
can you remember the final and the atmosphere afterwards? Or
I can remember it now on because I've seen it, of course, umpteen times on television again.
Yeah.
But maybe I wasn't as into it as I might have been,
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And the games England were really lucky in the sense that all their games, I think, in that World Cup were played at Wembley. So
yes, that's right, yeah.
So they kind of pulled a few fast ones there. But that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that I remember, and was that the West Indies were on tour around that time, and I was in the bar playing cricket, and they had this prince of cricketers called Gary Sobers, and I was in the bar and I was looking at this cricket, all day stuff, 3-day stuff, and all this. And gradually, you had the barflies, and I was learning about the cricket from them. I learned something.
The rules.
From them. The rules,
yeah.
of course, the overs and the many balls and the bowlers and the spins and the fast ball, all that kind of stuff. And that stuck with me. And I remember later on in 1974, I think it was, working for Murphy's for the summer. I used to go over during the summer. And I'd be down in a hole digging a gas line. So search and find, we were called, for gas leakages and to repair them. And then you'd have the bowler headed, the bowler clad the men passing down, and I'd be down in the hole, and the West Indies or some team was playing again, and I'd shout up, I said, "What's the score? What are you up, Paddy? What's the score in the match?" the game. I said, what game, Paddy? The cricket game. Cricket?
Uh-huh.
That came as a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
That this Paddy down the hole was looking for the
Cricket
score in the
scores,
cricket score, yeah.
Very unusual. Yeah, there's not many people. I always knew Owen O'Donoghue who liked cricket, and to be honest with you, I never knew anyone else locally or anyone else afar that actually followed cricket. So that was...
Well, I'll finish my cricket stories in the sense that a couple of years ago, before BC, like before COVID, they done Owen Senior, Quincy, and Michael O'Donoghue, and was there another O'Donoghue in it, and myself. We went to Lords to see Ireland playing England. Now, being in Lords, that was something for these paddies. So, and I actually had some Roscommon gear with me, and I put it on in Lords, going into the... And we were very well received, And the next thing, another Roscommon man came towards me and was pretending to faint when he saw the Roscommon colours, Roscommon jersey in Lords. He says, I never thought I'd see the day.
Jeez, yeah. And so in 1967, you headed off to college.
I went to UCG as Brendan had left at this stage.
You finally got your spot.
Finally got my spot, yeah. And it was UCG was, if you got the chance now to go to university at that time, it was heaven.
Yeah.
In the sense that you met so many good guys, lads of your own, and if you didn't like them, there were others, maybe a few girls, all this kind of thing. And I got involved I met Bernard Maguire at that time, and he inveigled me into the boxing club. So I did a bit of boxing.
Okay.
And sometimes when I'm passing by the National Concert Hall, I can say, if I was with you, Carlo, say, and I said, I performed in there. And you'd probably be a bit surprised. Did you sing or what did you do? No, I was at a boxing match.
Yeah.
That was my. So I did perform in the National Concert Hall, but that was in '67, and I could have done better as well. And I went and I didn't get the full list with 4 subjects: English again, history, geography, and archaeology. But I didn't get them all. I could have gone back to repeat. But I went in '68, my first trip to America, New York. So that was incredible, really.
And you went on a couple of trips over the years.
Three years to the States as a student. The famous visa.
J1 was it?
J1, the famous J1.
Was that right back then?
That was it, yeah.
J1, yeah.
J1's at that time. My pal Jimmy Monaghan had 3 sisters there, and I went over with him. So they set the ground for it. We didn't go over like blank, but he had been there the year before. And we went there, and that was great. And there was a few incidents, a few things. Gaelic Park, there were 2 places. Gaelic Park on Sunday, still going for football, and we played a bit of football for Roscommon there. And also a Red Mill, which was a dance hall down near Yankee Stadium. It's kind of it would be black country now.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but we were a little bit wild, I suppose.
Yeah, but sure, that's back in New York.
I got a good job, actually. A good job on construction through contact from Furety, Brian Mulhern, the Lord of Mercy.
Yeah.
Mulhern Park in Furety, GAA Park, is called after that family. But, I worked on a building beside St. Patrick's Cathedral, and also in a little bit of St. Patrick's Cathedral, where all the bishops of New York were buried under the high altar, and we were in there for a bit. And at that time, that was '68, Nixon was on the go for re-election, and he came to that house. Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Cook was and we were doing a lot of work on that house. And during when Nixon arrived, then we were kind of ushered a little bit to the side, but it wasn't much more than from here to the window. Nixon, now, he didn't know me.
Yeah.
But
At that time.
No, but it was an incident. And then one of my regrets that time was that my father was always into boxing a bit, in the papers and that. And the famous boxer from 1920s was Jack Dempsey of Irish. He had some Irish origin. And he also was a greeter, I would say, in a pub near where St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Okay.
And there was his name was over the door, and I regret a lot not going in there to actually meet him. Maybe I wouldn't have met him, but I didn't make enough of an effort. To
Yes.
But my first trip to New York. We used to go up and down the Hudson on the Day Line. That was a boat going up and down the
Tours,
Hudson.
or was
tours?
It? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I was kind of feeding out Frankfurters and these sausages that you put into whatever.
Yeah,
and they come out looking green, but we'd put them on the spit and that'd take the greenness out. I didn't spend long at that, but really we got it was a good summer in terms of finance.
Yeah, of course.
Well
yeah. Back then, it would have been. And the pound back then as well would have still been 2 to the dollar at least, wouldn't it?
The punt.
But you still were making enough coming back.
Yeah, we brought back that. That was that was pretty important. So I arrived back in October. I didn't come back. Might have come back in September, but October, and then I got serious about more serious, we'll say, about what it was in UCG for.
So that brings up to about the year 71, 72 maybe.
The last 68, 69 and 70. In 1970 we went to Philadelphia.
Yes.
Landscape gardening. And I used to meet visitors at Boyle Abbey later on, and if they said they were from Philadelphia, I'd love to tell them, I was in Philadelphia and I left it a nicer place as a landscape gardener. Yeah. 60, I'll just reverse back to the first year, 68. I got hooked a bit, like I did in London on cricket, on baseball.
All right.
I got to love baseball because a team called the Mets came from last place, like Leicester did.
Okay.
And they won the World Series, actually.
Okay.
And that was one.
And that was a big deal as well.
That was a big deal. Yeah. And New York also had a famous fellow called Joe Namath. He was called Nightclub Joe or something.
Okay.
And they won the football as well on that year. And that was huge
too,
in New York.
And so you would have been over in New York then for
68 and 69.
So Armstrong walked
69.
And do you remember that? You obviously remember that, yeah.
We were up in a bar, the Leitrim Bar or something, and we were watching
this on the TV.
That in 69. And I remember a fella from Donegal, he playing not snooker now, but
pool.
Pool, exactly.
Yeah.
And pool, but he wasn't interested.
Didn't see the significance.
Armstrong can walk wherever he wants. Yeah. I'm going playing pool.
He's getting his game in.
Oh yeah. But those were the kind of lads you
of course,
yourself.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And they're the good old days as well. Like, and were there 3 month stints on the J1?
Yeah.
And I don't know, could you get extensions or that back then?
No, some of them got so extended is that they never came back.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But
I know a few of those, yeah.
Yeah. So that brings us up then to around 72ish. What year did you come?
72, I came to Boyle.
You came to Boyle, so...
I do say to people that myself, Sean Young and John Kelly, the solicitor, senior, that the three of us came on the same summer in 72. It was a good year for Boyle.
Good year for Boyle. And how did that come about, the position opening up in St. Mary's?
I do say, and this is a true story, that I didn't actually apply for the position in St. Mary's College in this sense. Pat Mulvale, who was a friend of mine in college at the time, and still a friend of mine, and he canvassed all the schools around for the teaching post, and he got the teaching post in the Convent of Mercy in Boyle.
Okay.
And he had canvassed St. Mary's College at the time, and he didn't get a response there. But when he did get a response from Canon Dodd, he says, "Well, I've got a position, but I know I have a friend who is looking for a position," and the friend was me. And I was interviewed by Canon Dodd out in Drumderry, Nursing Home, and he must have thought okay of me. But it was a time when there were a lot of vacancies for teachers,
Yeah,
the
back
famous
then.
surge of Dun O'Malley, free education.
And had you much exposure to Boyle prior to coming in 72, Tony? Had you been there before many times?
No,
No.
I hadn't.
Okay.
I had the exposure I had to Boyle was going to Finner Camp through Boyle
Right.
on the lorries, and we'd come through Boyle. Boyle, even the name was a bit. But
After.
and also I was aware, although I was aware and had come to a few flags, not the All Ireland flags of 60 and 66. I could have come to 66 because my sister came to it, and I was, that was a miss for me again. One of these misses, Jack Dempsey moments.
Oh, you didn't actually get to Boyle for the 66, was it?
No. But I wasn't. I could have been. Where was I? In London, I think. Yeah.
Okay, because I always remember in school, I always remember you telling me that how you would describe, obviously from photos of the Flat Cure in 66, you could walk on people's head from the top of the town to the bottom. And that always stuck with me for some reason, of a visual representation of what the Flat Cure must have been like.
There is a picture in Daly's Bear now, and I have a copy of it, obviously. And then there's one in Dodds now, that kind of scenario. And then the slope down and all that, and that you could actually walk on and down from the Crescent down to Windsbar.
Yeah.
But it was marvellous. And I do say that anytime I'm asked now, where are you from? And I say Boyle. And the answer I get from often, or have gotten often, was, Jill, I was in Boyle once.
Never again.
At the flat. No, it was all positive.
Oh, was it all positive?
All brilliant,
Yeah.
Brilliant reputation.
Yeah, and obviously, historically, a very vibrant musical town as well over the years.
Well, at that time, they had the Cultus. You had to have Cultus. It started around 1955 in Mullingar, and they had the Flat Cure this year in Mullingar in the summer, and they'll have it again next year.
They had it the year before as well, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know. But, okay.
Yeah, I think.
But it was that because they were the original, and then eventually it came to. But Boyle had a good committee, and his mother, Mrs. Kathleen Dwyer Morris, who you'd know,
Neighbour,
and Micheál Callan, Jimmy Flaherty, the Dowds, and had a good committee, and they got the flat to Boyle, and in 66. 60, what is it?
60 and 66 was
60 and 66.
Yeah.
No, the first one, 60.
Yeah.
And that
Set the precedent.
established,
Yeah, okay.
its reputation, and it got it again in 66.
So you came to Boyle, and at that stage, were there many teachers up in St. Mary's? Like, was there a bunch? Or how many of them roughly was there?
I would say just now, that's a question that stumps me a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll just say I'll call it 15 maybe at that time. And we were good. Like, some of us didn't know what we were doing very much sometimes. But
Learned as you went along.
We kind of learned on the job, yeah. And we all got on very well, in fairness. And as you might remember, like, we were a very kind of different personalities in that school.
Oh, definitely, yeah. There was definitely
some very good teachers in it, and some.
And were any of them teachers, like from my days in St. Mary's, that were there before you came along?
There would have been 12 or 13. I was nearly in the latter cohort that came in. And then a few of Mary Sheeran came after me, Mary Martin probably, Mary Carr, and those, and then John Miles. Johnny Metal came, all right.
That's right.
Tom Collar, and then another great character.
I remember
right?
Mechanical Drawn, wasn't it?
Mechanical Drawn. He's now in Balladrine, good friend of mine. And, you had Porrick Callan was there. Tommy Conlon was there the year before me, that kind of thing.
Right, so
and
Tommy was before you, right?
Yeah, just there about a year before me. And there was a group there of golfers,
Yes.
And I wasn't a golfer at that time, and I didn't no interest. And in the staff room, you'd have the golfers in a corner. They were always missing putts and everything. And we were the gay crowd.
So you had the segregation going on there. Yeah.
Well, Paddy Nangle covered both sports.
Yes.
golf and Gaelic football, yeah.
So then in the 70s, Tony, you obviously got involved with the Boyle GAA.
Yeah.
On a big kind of level.
Yeah. It became, it was a continuation. I had been involved with the UCG club. I was secretary of the club in UCG, Sigerson and that kind of stuff. And also in Furty, where I come from. And because my father and all that, we had a great tradition. The Conboys, we had a good background in that. But anyway, Boyle, I got sucked into that. It wasn't easy. It wasn't hard.
It wasn't hard to get you involved.
Yeah, exactly. And then we arrived in the big effort that time was we bought the Abbey Park.
Right.
We bought it actually from Canon Dodd. But that's the story. He had bought land. He had bought it from a private individual in we'll call it 65 years so out. And then he also, there was land going up at the top field. Do you remember the top field, the high field?
Yes.
Behind O'Dowd's Bar and what is now Trojan.
That's right.
That field. And he exchanged the Abbey Park for that land.
Okay, right.
It was trustees that owned the land up there and they swapped it. So we bought it from these trustees. And some of the trustees were GAA people as well, Paddy Daly and Barry Feely maybe, and those kind of. So they were very kind of. It was a generous. We got that field, and it has now emerged. It's a beautiful field now.
It is. It is very, very nice, and the
great facility.
The location as well beside the Abbey. So it's very, very picturesque.
A lot of even outside town clubs, Kilronan and St Michael's, Shannon Gales, and so on. They'd say it's their favourite field, especially if they beat Boyle.
Well, yeah, of course.
Ballymean to be in there as well.
So then, looking at the notes, Tony, that you sent, you did some work. Then you were kind of. It says here during the hot summer of the 77.
77. I think it was 70.
And the late Noel Conroy.
He only died a while ago. And myself and Noel were putting up the headstones for Mr. Feely, as Sonny Regan used to call him, Mr. Feely. And so it's 6 or 7 weeks of scorcher that time. And Noel Conroy was one of the toughest men in terms of a worker, marvellous worker, and carrying curbs up hills and different things. And whistling or singing.
Oh yeah, sure. It was only a few years ago. I remember seeing him on the top of a ladder somewhere with the shirt off. Sun on the back. Good old Noel.
Yeah. But that was good. And we went up. We put up a headstone in Northern Ireland in Fermanagh, and crossed before and coming back. We brought back butter for somebody, because there was a big divergence apparently on butter price or something. Box of butter back, and we were stopped by the British Army, not for the butter, and Sonny Regan was one side of it, and Sonny was sweating, I'll tell you, when he saw the gun coming in the window. It's all because of somebody's butter. That was a little bit of it. But Noel, I remember that summer with Noel, and as good top summer in terms of fun with him.
Yeah. And you got married then in 79.
79, July 79. We had our reception in the Royal Hotel with Mr. Regan, Vincent, and good. That was good, yeah.
And it says that you got married in the annex next to the gym. Now, is that up in the in the school, the gym?
Yeah, in St. Mary's College.
Because of the church was burnt down.
In 1977, the church, the old church in Boyle was burned, and they were rebuilding it to what it is today. And we were married in the annex. So I was married to my job, or in my job, my job location. So I always say that it's nearly like other things I relate to, like the concert hall.
Yeah,
performing in the concert hall. Yeah. And it was part of the. Her mother was Kathleen Dwyer Morris, a very well-known musician.
Yeah, Cayley House.
Cayley House Bar.
Yeah,
and at that time, then I got involved as a helper in the Kelly House Bar, and we had quizzes and we had music all the time, and great times. And you might, were you or what age?
Well, I would have remembered the kind of the party nights next door to obviously the Chipper. So I do remember the Kelly House well, and I can still I can still see Kathleen and a few other musicians playing away, and it was great atmosphere. Atmosphere. And I even saw photos then. I think it was Joe Kennedy had a couple of photos up out in the yard at the back. We were going to the sessions and all that. So it was a great focal point of the town as well. I'm hoping maybe at some stage Jerry Morris, your brother-in-law, will come on and maybe talk about the Cayley House, because I think he'd have a good insight into that. I think it'd be a good piece of history to get in.
Well, I kept after when the Cayley House closed, I collected a number of photographs, etc. And I have a book of those, and I'll show them to you.
Oh,
Carlo,
brilliant! Yeah, I'd take a scan of them. Yeah.
Well, I also remember, we'll say, people going in round the back into the back of your place.
Well, I remember. I only was talking to Mum about it this morning, because I do remember every night Jerry and he used to have a little dog called, I think, Roscoe or something.
Jerry's very fond of the dogs. Yeah.
He used to come in the back way because it connected to the back of the Chipper,
right,
and he'd come in after the pub closed, and I think he'd get a curry chips and sausages or something.
They
come in and have the chat.
I was trying to think of that actually.
Yeah.
The curry chips.
So they were like, I was only a young fella back then, but I can still remember Jerry coming in, the curly hair, and coming in and getting the.
He was very he was very friendly with your dad as well.
Yeah.
Hugely friendly.
Yeah.
And the musicians at that time are still they're still a group of them play in Dodds now, and you have Bernie Flaherty, Francis Gaffney, Brendan Gaffney, Donny O'Connor, Kate O'Connor, and then you have the Tivnan lads out there.
And they would all have been that nucleus from
the later. Let's cut it, the second half of the 1975 on, and that same group is still doing the same thing.
Is that the group that started up on Thursday nights now in Dodds? Is that a part of it, or is that something different?
No, that is something different. They're singers now.
Oh, that's a
singing
thing. Okay.
But the musicians do Friday nights, every second Friday night in Dodds, unless there's a special occasion or something.
It's great to see, though, them traditions are kept going, especially with the same nucleus that are still there of people that are still playing.
Yeah, well, it kind of what your question there about Boyle and music and so on, that there is a certain amount of music in Boyle, traditional music, but it's the same people. And there in the summer, it's just coming into my head now, we put a plaque on what was Grant's pub.
Yes.
To the grand sisters,
that's right,
Helen and Marie and Bernie and so on.
And there's another plaque there, O'Reilly, isn't there?
A man called O'Reilly, John Riley.
He was also a musician as well.
No. He was a traveller man, and itinerant traveller.
Yeah.
And he was a settled traveller in Boyle for a while, and he used to go into Grahan's bar, and he had a wealth of songs that went back maybe 100 years or 150 years.
And passed
the Well Below the Valley and other ones now. And Christy Moore used to come to the Grand. And people like Christy Moore because it was a folk kind of song place. The Cayley House Bar was a pure traditional music bar, although there would be sing songs as well, like Micheál Gallagher and people like that. But and that's. And he had these great songs, and Christy Moore always acknowledges the fact that it was from this John Riley he got this song, and it was in Grands. And so that's why we put that plaque up there during July there.
That was in the summer, It was a cracking day as well.
Oh, it was a great, successful day, Saturday, and it was a lovely day. Frank Keelan was really the promoter of that. Sean O'Dowd, Shane Flaherty, Bernie Flaherty, and other people were involved in that. So I was involved in it as well.
Yeah. So through the 70s and 80s, you got involved, obviously, with the GAA in a big way. You've written a couple of booklets and books on the history of GAA as well.
Yeah.
In Roscommon.
My biggest kind of contribution that time was I was editor of the Roscommon GAA history it started in the early 80s. Miola Callan and company promoted it, that it should be done. I'm a great believer that clubs should record their as best they can, or keep a record of it and keep a photographic record of it. And if you ever have photographs, put the names of the team on the back of it.
Well, that's only a part. You see that now, yeah.
I'm constant with that. But I was the editor of it, but the contributors, Tom Mullaney was a huge help to me in that. And other people did handball, and called Nocton. We, of course, were a great handball town, boy.
Oh, yeah.
And he did that, and people did camogie and so on. So there were 6 or 8 more contributors. But I did the kind of a body of it, and was the editor of that Roscommon History, which was eventually published after a few postponements. Oh, yeah. Which, stories about that. But in 1990, it was launched in the Abbey Hotel in Roscommon, and the guests of honour on the night were the Roscommon minor team of 1939, the first team to ever win an All-Ireland for Roscommon.
Okay.
That was at the beginning of what's called the glory decade of Roscommon football in the 1940s.
Right.
So that was that book. It is out of print now. Hopefully we'll get some reprint of it. But if anyone listening to you here, Carlo, have that book, keep it, because they have...
It's
rare, and it would cost you. If you, I found myself actually with a number of those books, and then people were asking me. I have an uncle in Chicago, and his birthday is, and he's pictured in that, and he loved that. And eventually, my little stack went down to this position that I was looking out for them and buying them back, which I did with a book from Trinity Bookshop in Carrick-on-Shannon. And I saw it there, and I asked the proprietor there about it. And he says, "You're interested in that book?" And it was priced at €110 or something. Oh. And I said, "I am, because that's my name." There. And he says, "Well, I'll give you a concession on it." So he gave it to me for €80 or something.
That's good, yeah. So that was that book. Anyway. Yeah. And then I've contributed to, like, I don't want to say sound kind of, this is what I did, I all the time. No, but you have contributed a significant amount of to Boyle over the years. So, that's important to highlight that.
Yeah, but I would always most of it I would have done with other people. Now, the little booklets, like the ones for the opening of the Abbey Park in 2005, reopening of, revamped and brought up to standards. And then 2005 and 2010, they were small kind of pieces. But the other event of the 1980s, you might mention it there, was the Maureen O'Sullivan trip.
Oh yes, massive event. I have vague memories of that on the day. How I remember seeing the photos, and I remember you seeing in the car with Maureen. But how did you come to play a part in that? What was your role in that in that event?
Yeah. Well, again in Daly's, and one of the Daly's, Geraldine Daly, they founded a girls' club, a ladies' club, just like your men's clubs and so on. And a project kind of that was mooted at that time, was to invite Maureen O'Sullivan. She's a lady from Boyle, and they'd invite her back. So that kind of died a little bit. And then a couple of years later, maybe, Frank Keelan again, Frank was going to head a thing. He wanted me to. He kind of roped me in anyway, and it's great time for Frank Keelan. Yeah. And the town of Boyle, he's major contributor of that. But so Frank anyway, and myself, more or less came to the idea more or less the same time, and eventually we got in touch with her representative. What do you call them? PR manager, yeah. Her manager. And eventually, after a bit of coaxing and so on, she agreed to come with her husband. And we had a great committee. I won't mention them by name now because I'd leave out people, and I hate that, but I can see them, and great support. So she arrived anyway on Saturday, was it, of say 6th or 7th of August, and she came to Boyle then on the Sunday. On the Sunday, went to Mass, crowded church.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
And Father Green was at that. So she was there at that, and Paddy Leonard then showed her where she was baptised, on her name in the book, baptismal register, and then various events during the day. And one of the main things, we set up an entertainment concert kind of in the Royal Hotel with Mary Ryan, Aggie Devine Conlon, Mrs. Morris, and Morris, McDermott man, from people from Ballyfernan and so on. And there was great St. Josephine Carroll, of course, Mrs. Moran Keeney lady. And all those are now, that was recorded by, we'll say, Donny Farrell was doing
That's
video.
right, Donny was the video man back then, yeah.
And it was a hugely successful. Then the next day we brought her out to where she had lived for. She was born beside the gate to King House, and she lived some time out in Burks, what is now Burks in Knockvicker, house out there.
Okay.
And on the Monday then she was famous because she was the original Jane in the Tarzan film.
That's right.
And she was also the mother of Mere Farrow, but she also had very other apart from the Jane, me Tarzan, you Jane, and the monkey in it or whatever. But on the Monday then she went out and planted a tree, monkey puzzle tree in Burks, which still has flourished since I saw it there not too long ago.
Okay, yeah, because that was a huge event that I only vaguely remember. But is there, like Donny was taking video back then, is there video footage still around of that?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And the other thing about that is that it featured on the RTE News, 6 o'clock news on the Monday. And when Gay Byrne came back to the Late Late Show after his sojourn in the summer, he mentioned it as one of the highlights of the summer, not just itself, now as a compilation. And it has the plaque there. I did a couple of walks for the Arts Festival, and that's nearly my first call is the plaque, Maureen O'Sullivan plaque outside the house where she was born.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, and it is one of the features of Boyle.
Oh, absolutely. And because I remember you were doing a tour, BC, as you said, of town during the Arts Festival. Yeah. And I remember you were talking about the history of that event back then. But so you were also a tour guide in the Abbey Park for a period of time. In the Abbey itself. Sorry, in the Abbey.
I could be.
You were in there as well. Tour guide, and you were a couple of years in the Abbey doing tour guides as well.
Yeah, from 2007 to 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that job, and I was pretty good at it, or reasonably good at it.
Yeah.
And you meet people all the time. And
yeah.
Whatever, and that was good.
So for me as well, obviously being an ex-teacher of mine, my other memories of yourself, Tony, would have been the quiz masters. So as I was saying, if Tony hadn't taught you in secondary school, if you hadn't had him as teacher, you probably had him as a quiz master at some stage over the years. You were heavily involved in the quizzes, and you made a couple of appearances on the TV.
Yeah.
Was it the Where in the World?
Where in the World was one of them, and what was the other one? Rapid Roulette was another one. I was on one of them a couple of times. And I also had a school team and Blackboard Jungle, Jungle Boyle and McGettrick, and I'm going to leave some of the lads out, and young Began, and sorry about that.
Yeah.
But they were the school team, Blackboard Jungle. And,
I remember that.
And they were a good team. Now they were two. We had two sessions at it, and we nearly got into the final or something. But because they were a good team. But the other ones was Rapid Roulette and Where in the World. And one of those, I think there's Rapid Roulette. I inveigled, it was a family, that was a family, you were to have a family. And I inveigled my 3 nephews from Kilkenny to come on, because it was these guys were in 3rd level and were smart guys enough. And they came on it anyway. And it was kind of a quiz where one person could carry a lot of the whatever of it. But anyway, we won that anyway. And they became famous in Thomastown for the quiz and also for the jumpers they wore on the night.
All right.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
And you retired in 2001.
2001, yeah. I kind of had it done over 30 years, and I kind of thought maybe I'd write the big book or something, but they're all small, very small books.
Well, you've already made a start anyway. Which you'd have plenty of material, as they say, to write one. You might still do it.
Well, like after the notes I've given to you.
Well, that was a good introduction anyway.
A good start. So thank you for that, Carlo. I'll have you maybe launch it in 5 years' time.
The other, I had a few questions as well, Tony, that I just thought I might kind of throw at you here. I just want to try and find them. Yeah. So just a few questions that I might get you to answer if you can. So did you always want to be a teacher when you were young? Was that kind of what you wanted to do?
No, not really. No, I was in the archway in the winter. When I arrived back at UCG, there was a queue for arts and so on, and there was a queue for medicine. And I'm not going to say that I tossed a coin. A lot of people are lucky they didn't go for medicine. They're still alive. But I went anyway to the arts because of the strengths I had, really, the English and the history, and that I had already got that function. So I have no really regrets about that decision. And also teaching in St. Mary's College with Pádraig Callahan and Paddy Nangle and Tommy Conlon and Mary Martin, great Mary Sheeran, and especially Mary Kevill, the secretary, who kept the whole glued us all together.
She's still there, isn't she? Or in some capacity?
She is. Yeah. In a strong capacity.
Strong capacity, right.
You wouldn't mess with Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, great woman, yeah. But so that was, in the early days, we had good fun as well, as a group almost. And then towards the end, sometimes 95% of the lads that I came across were 100%. And, in one class I had the honour, recent honour anyway, of saying that I was Chris O'Dowd was in.
Yes, of course.
You mentioned a few like that. Yeah, in talking about lads, many lads kind of come to the fore. But one I'll particularly mention, there's one lad, now a man of course, he's Pádraig Sweeney.
Oh, yeah.
I gave Pádraig a bit of extra help, we'll call it, with some of the subjects, maybe English or whatever it was. And I didn't make much of it or anything like that. But years later then, I met Pádraig in one of the taverns in the town, maybe the Royal Org, and he was really generous in his praise and said that extra help that I gave him was very helpful to him in life thing. He went to England after that. Then he is now in Sydney in Australia. He's a landscape gardener or whatever, and he did well and is doing well. And any time he is home and I meet up with him, he always
remembers,
gives me a clap on the back for what I did in that time.
That's
I hope actually Pádraig wasn't the only one, although I haven't got a whole file of thank you cards.
No, but it's nice to get appreciation shown.
Yeah, and Pádraig certainly has done that, and I appreciate that from Pádraig.
So then, would you have any standout favourite memory of your time in teaching in St. Mary's? Was there any kind of standout memory that you were...
Well, we had a team with a very good team that won Connacht B, juvenile, under 15 or 16. And you had Maurice Martin was part of that. Lachlan was on it.
That's right.
Colin Garvin was on it. McTiernan's from You had the Ballyferrin crew, and you had Ballinameen crew as well, Murta and those guys. And Paul Simon was another. And we beat a very good team from outside there, Colooney, or not Colooney, out not Ballymote, Turlock, what's the other bigger town there? Saint something. But I shouldn't have missed that now. But we beat them. They had a good. It was a B now. I always stress. You have schools winning. We won a Connacht championship, and I remember one fella saying that to me one time. Some student. I says, "Did you win? What was it? What grade was it? B, C, D, or something?" And I just turned on my heels. He must have thought. we were at a time actually in St Mary's. We were in A, as they were playing Charlottes and people like that.
Yeah.
But no, that's one. The other one was a tour to York with Frank Tivernan and Frank Flanagan.
The famous tours, I heard about them.
Yeah, okay, and that was memorable.
Yeah, yeah.
Little stories, funny stories.
Exactly, yeah.
Nothing, no malice or whatever forethought in it. But
those are
what other ones were there now? But there were also the sad times in the school.
Of course.
We had the tragedies, Degnan died, and I was doing a quiz actually, and the next thing, pre-Christmas quiz. This is the last day. And I was doing this quiz, and me then trying to be funny or whatever, great crack. And the next thing I saw a little conference of 3 or 4 teachers, and Don was there. He was the principal, good man too, and good to me too. And I says, "There's something amiss here." And then afterwards, we continued with the thing. The quiz finished, and everyone was hijinks. And I went over, and Don says that young Degnan had died,
Which Degnan is this, Tony? Is it that I'm trying to think of Degnan?
Degnan from Rathallan. There were two lads, 2 sons, and their father. And their mother was a county councillor. Her father was a county councillor.
Okay.
And she was county councillor. She's deceased now.
Okay.
But so 2 of them, one of them died in a crash going from Rathallan. I'd leave that out. Yeah. But just the lad coming from the school, he died tragically. And there were a few more young. There was a young Spellman as well, I think.
Yeah.
And Fogarty, I'd say.
Oh, that's
David.
Yeah. Very close
those
friend.
Kind of things, yeah.
They were tragic. Yeah, of course.
Those are tough.
A bit of a Back to the Future one. What advice would you give to a young 20-year-old Tony?
I thought a 20-year-old Tony to myself.
If you could go back and tell Tony when he was 20 years old some advice, life advice going forward, what would it be?
Well, some fella said there recently that he was sorry he wasn't wilder when he was young. I heard that from
Didn't let the hair down a little bit.
Yeah. He says, I was glad. I'm sorry I didn't remember who did that now. He was a sports person or something, and is now a serious individual, and he had been around university and maybe been a bit wild at the time, and the commentator asked him or something, maybe the same question, and he says, I'm glad I did all those wild things in terms of enjoying life.
Of course, exactly, yeah.
The other thing that I did, I probably left off there was family.
Yeah.
My story. There are 2 layers in your life really. Family is 1 layer.
Yeah.
And that was that. And I've, the lads yourself, Lachlan especially.
Yeah.
And Keenan and Killeen, and our grandchildren. My wife Anne, still at the music and all that.
Yeah.
She did her own thing, and and we've been. People have died. My mother died in 84. My father died in 73. My brother died 2006. And all that. You had those tragedies, but there was no disaster in my life as such. None of the kind of like what happened above in Donegal there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
know, which is crazy. Or what we mentioned about young Degnan or whatever, you know. So I had a decent life, and I did a few things, and maybe I could have done better. Yeah.
I think that's definitely the title for the podcast. This episode, Tony, could have done better.
But people would be critical of me saying that maybe about myself.
Not at all. Yeah. Not at all. One last question. In your opinion, has the world changed for the better during your life?
Obviously in ways, right?
Yeah.
I at the beginning of this, I talked to you about the 50s and no water, no light, and no bad hygiene, bad health, rheumatic fever my sister had, and TB was rampant, polio in kids, all that. And then we had the great 60s, the 70s were dull. And now, like, I'm very poor at what you have there in front of you, you know.
Technology-wise,
okay. And even typing on a laptop now, and I'd like to type fast because I'd be thinking, but the faster I get, the more mistakes I make. In other words, as a typist, I have 10 thumbs.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but today, as we stand today, or this is, we'll say November 2022, December 2022, you know, with what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on, we'll say the threat of China.
Yeah.
I remember a teacher that I used to visit, a retired teacher, history teacher, and I did a dutiful visit on him one time. He lived near me at home. And I stayed for the half hour doing almost like kind of a courtesy call or whatever. And I got up off my chair to go. And then he says, and what about China? So I had to plop down again. This is about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had to plop down on the chair and wait another 20 minutes dissecting China and the threat that China was going to be.
Back then.
Yeah. He saw it into the future.
You could see coming.
And they're going to be a huge issue now for the Americans.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's that. So, you know, that Afghanistan, the way the Americans pulled out of Afghanistan, incredible. We'll say the likes of Trump on the sideline, to me, a buffoon. I think that's a French word. But America, I look at American politics a good bit and see one side only waiting to kind of block the other side, not achieve what they could.
There's nothing.
Could do.
They're not.
And actually, we live in a reasonable country here, in a sense. Pity about that bloody border, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Which has created all kinds of things, you know. It has made millionaires of some people along with it, of course.
Yeah.
But what else? So great. We have a health system we give out about it, but it's there.
But compared to other countries,
it's been all right.
It could be definitely better.
Could be different, of course. Yeah.
You know,
could do better.
Could do better in that. It's definitely, and as you said, we give out about it. But compared to some countries, we're way ahead.
We are a good country, you know.
Yeah.
And we'll say take the other thing is about Boyle. I came to Boyle. I'm regarded as a blow-in in Boyle. I'm get my green card soon, hopefully. And but Boyle is a lovely town.
It is.
We go out to the Forest Park to walk, and we can have a list of walks. You have such opportunities.
Yeah,
you aren't jumping up on.
There's a lot of green. Yeah, no, that's true. And there's, as you said, and
safe walks.
It is. Yeah,
that's that of Lockheed Forest Park out there. It's just absolutely beautiful. Great manager there, Louise. Does great work out there, and then you have Boyle is a heritage town, really.
It is.
When I go around on the, I used to bring my uncle from Chicago. Sorry if I'm going on.
Not at all.
But my uncle home from Chicago. He used to come home from Chicago, and every year a few people. He was an elderly man. A few young people would come with him, and I'd be taking them on the tour out the Rocket Dune, and up to the Chieftain and that kind of thing, and out to Lockheed Forest Park and so on. And then one evening, then there'd be different people with him now. So that's why it would be the same thing, the tour every year. And Tony, You showed me this the last time. Matty, I'm really not showing it to you. I'm showing it's really like the walk going around Boyle, you know.
Yeah.
Have you been here before? Well, it's not that different. But anyway, when you go through Boyle, it's a heritage town, and there's so many little things.
Yeah.
I leave out the big ticket items: King House, the Abbey, Lockheed Forest Park. Like you need an afternoon for all those. And I go around and show them things that they didn't maybe see, the handball alley.
Yeah.
Or tell them about Paddy Perry, probably the greatest sportsman Roscommon ever had, bar none, you know.
That was the handball. Yeah, I heard of it.
He was the prince of handballers. He also played Gaelic football and hurling and also badminton and whatever. Won 3 Dublin senior medals on the one day.
I've read about this. Yeah. Morning and the afternoon and evening.
He won a football medal with the Garda senior football. And then he was held on to play hurling. He probably wasn't a great hurler, got injured there. And then there was this toughie kind of, I know the name, I won't say, a man called Burry. And he wanted to postpone, Paddy Perry was injured and wanted to postpone the handball final. Your man wouldn't agree. So Paddy Perry beat him anyway. But it cost him a few weeks extra in hospital with his ankle. But he was, and I kind of met him once in the Gaelic Bear, of course, yeah. A lot went on in that Gaelic Bear.
Oh, it was
Peter
a focal
Peter
point.
Horton and Fred Finn.
And if you had to point out the single most interesting thing about Boyle, if you had to pick just one, whether be it an iconic place or the community or, as we talked about, the mountain walkways, Lockheed, what would be one thing that would stick out as the most interesting point about Boyle?
Well, for me, it would be something that's nationally known, and I love the place, is Lockheed Forest Park would be one, you know, and that attracts visitors from all over the country. And whenever I ask them, I meet a stranger or something in maybe Galway or wherever, that I ask them, have you ever been to Lockheed Forest Park in Boyle? And if they say no, I do pretend to faint that they haven't heard of it. And I go on to advertise for Lockheed Forest Park. You have a lovely great manageress out there, manager now I suppose you call him, in Louise Fitzpatrick, and she does great work out there. That's my homage to Lockheed Forest Park. Now also I suppose I would have to mention the Abbey Park. People would be very surprised if it didn't, in which I have spent a considerable block of time if it was all put together. The Abbey Park, a lovely site, when full of youngsters, say if you're walking up from the Boyle Celtic ground on a summer day and see the park flooded with youngsters at a cool camp, for instance, or whatever. So Lockheed Forest Park and the Abbey Park would be two of my heartbeat places, yeah.
I always like to finish up with one last question, and that's, have I not asked anything during the past hour that I should have? Is there any question?
No, we've got through a fair few.
We've covered everything.
Yeah. There's one thing actually that, well, it won't... When I went to Galway, I stayed with a lady called Mrs. Hines, I call her. And I was on the top of Rahone Road, and Lordsville it was called. And I stayed there for a few seasons, and she taught. I said, I remember 2 lecturers I had in UCG. I remember more, but 2 anyway, especially. Michael D. Higgins.
Okay.
Sociology and politics. He was one. That's I'm putting names now. You whistle out to the meeting. Whistle out. And also, my landlady, because she had patience of Job, as they call it. And I actually stayed friendly with her after I left. I went out into the apartments then. Yeah, myself and Liam Donlan and a few of us. There's where the chips came in anyway.
Yeah.
But I used to keep going back to her, and I was at her funeral there in COVID in 2020 or 2019, and she was 100 and going 101. Oh, wow. And there had been several big moments in her life.
Yeah.
That woman, Mrs. Hines, she was another mother to me.
Yeah, nice. That's a nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to wrap it up, Tony. As I said, you've contributed a lot to Boyle over the years, and it's great. It's great to highlight it, and I really enjoyed the chat. And thank you very much for coming on and regaling us with a few of them stories.
A few more left out.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Tony.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thanks yourself, Carlo.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's it for this episode, folks. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you like the content, we'd really appreciate it if you could share it. You can follow us on Facebook by searching for Voices of Boyle, and you can also contact us on our website by visiting voicesofboyle.com. We're always looking for new guests, so if you'd like to be on the show, or if you know someone who you'd like to join us, please reach out to us via our Facebook page or website. Thanks very much, and we'll chat to you again soon.